India operates one of the largest agricultural systems on the planet, characterized by a remarkably high percentage of its reporting area dedicated to cultivation. But that vast physical scale is immediately counterbalanced by intense demographic pressure. Millions of people rely directly on this land, creating a system heavily dominated by subsistence agriculture. This is not a flexible, free market monolith where farmers easily pivot to whatever crop is trending. It is a rigid structure, constrained by severe geographic determinants and fixed land use patterns. To understand how this system actually works, we have to look at the temporal shifts in land use, map the strict climatic constraints dictating crop placement, and deconstruct the massive technological shock known as the Green Revolution. Before we can project India's agrarian economic future, we first need to map the unyielding physical limits and structural bottlenecks built into the soil. We start by looking at how the physical footprint of the nation has shifted over a multi-decade span. This chart illustrates the macro-level shift in land use categories across India from 1950 to 2014. The most drastic rate of increase appears here. The area under non-agricultural uses nearly tripled, climbing from 3.2 to 8.7%. As India's economic structure changed, urban and rural settlements expanded. This growth came directly at the expense of existing agricultural land and cultivable wastelands. Look at the apparent increase in forest cover, jumping from 17 to 23.3%. Caveat, this largely reflects expanded legal boundaries, not actual physical tree canopy. Meanwhile, the net sown area saw a modest expansion from 41.7 to 45.5%. This slight growth in net sown area was driven almost entirely by absorbing available cultivable wasteland and bringing it into production. The data reveals a hard ceiling. The spatial expansion of Indian farmland is effectively maxed out. Future agrarian growth cannot rely on claiming more land. It must rely entirely on maximizing the yield of existing acreage. Within that fixed acreage, agricultural output is locked into strict seasonal cycles, primarily the Kharif or monsoon season and the Rabi or winter season. This map plots the climatic demands of rice, India's core tropical crop, requiring temperatures exceeding 22 degrees and rainfall over 100 centimeters. These parameters lock rice cultivation into a specific geographic belt: West Bengal, Punjab, Uttar Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh, and Tamil Nadu. Wheat, a temperate winter crop, operates under different rules, demanding temperatures between 10 and 15 degrees Celsius and rainfall between 50 and 75 centimeters. This concentrates production in the northwest, sweeping across Uttar Pradesh, Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan, and Madhya Pradesh. This geographic lock dictates the physical, ground-level reality for millions of farmers waiting for the northwest winter harvest. These rigid determinants extend well beyond food grains, dictating the placement of vital cash crops. Take jute. It requires 120 to 150 centimeters of rain and well-drained alluvium. This intense water requirement isolates its production almost entirely to eastern states, like West Bengal and Assam. Cotton contrasts with jute. It cannot survive wet zones, instead demanding clear skies during its flowering stage and well-drained rigor, or black cotton soil. These precise requirements force cotton into the semi-arid western areas and southern plateaus, concentrating production in states like Gujarat and Maharashtra. The multi-billion-dollar distribution of Indian agriculture is dictated by a strict compliance to unyielding temperature, water, and soil constraints. Operating within this rigid geographic matrix exposes systemic inefficiencies. The land is heavily burdened by extreme fragmentation and disguised unemployment, where more workers are engaged in farming than actually required. This structural bottleneck is compounded by a systemic lack of crop diversification and a near-absolute dependence on the unpredictability of the monsoon. Traditional subsistence farming remains a heavily manual, low-yield process, restricted by poor access to modern irrigation, biocides, and fertilizers, the consolidation of landholdings. This package concentrated in zones with favorable conditions: Punjab, Haryana, and western Uttar Pradesh. Aggregate production spiked dramatically, reducing reliance on food grain imports. However, this fractured agrarian equality, creating severe systemic demerits alongside production gains. The exclusive focus on scaling up cereals like wheat and rice starved other critical crops like pulses and oilseeds of resources, creating massive intercrop imbalances. It also triggered stark regional disparities. Subsistence farmers in non-irrigated zones were economically left behind by the rapidly industrializing Green Revolution belt. Managing the fallout of these disparities, alongside guiding future innovations, falls to institutions like the Indian Council of Agricultural Research, or ICAR. ICAR's mandate is to plan and coordinate sustainable technology development, attempting to correct inherited imbalances and manage agriculture-based rural development across diverse regions. The Green Revolution proved that massive technological inputs can bypass physical limits long enough to secure a national food supply. But the long-term viability of Indian agriculture requires reconciling those intensive inputs with the unyielding spatial geometry of the land itself.